Hello, everyone, and welcome to SecureDApp's Face-Off Season 2, Episode 2. AI surveillance versus blockchain sovereignty. Can a person's right to life, right to privacy survive?
Hey guys, I'm Vansh, currently a founding engineer at Block Capital, working with building on-chain systems for safe for financial investments. So yeah, I'll be representing blockchain sovereignty today.
And I'm Sudhanshu Kumar, a cloud and DevOps engineer focused on AI systems, data analytics, and intelligent platforms. And I will be representing AI surveillance in today's episode. So, let me start with the hard truth. Every society that survives does so because it sees threats before they explode. Not after, not eventually, before. And that is exactly where blockchain sovereignty collapses. This debate is often framed as freedom versus control. That framing is dishonest. The real debate is prediction against postmortem, prevention against documentation, and governance against wishful thinking. Blockchain sovereignty does not prevent harm. It records harm beautifully after it has already happened. AI surveillance, when designed responsibly, stops harm before it reaches the citizens. Blockchain advocates proudly say trust comes from math, not monitoring. That sounds elegant until you test it against reality. Math can verify that a transaction happened, that a signature is valid, that a rule was followed. But math cannot tell you whether a wallet is controlled by a trafficker, whether a transaction funds terrorism, whether a coordinated attack is forming, or whether misinformation is spreading in real time. In the real world, intent matters more than validity. AI surveillance sees patterns, correlations, anomalies, and escalating trajectories. Blockchain sees hashes, and hashes do not save lives. Imagine this scenario, not theoretical, but real. A city receives fragmented signals, unusual movement patterns, abnormal financial microtransactions, coordinated communication spikes. AI surveillance can correlate these signals, flag risk, alert the authorities, and prevent escalation. Blockchain sovereignty says don't monitor, preserve freedom. So, what happens? The system waits, the protocol confirms, the ledger records, and the damage still happens. Blockchain gives you perfect forensic evidence for funerals. AI surveillance gives you intervention windows. And remember that you might hear decentralization prevents abuse. Disappear. It just reallocates. In devices, power concentrates in large validators, whale wallets, governance insiders, early protocol architects. Except now, no one is accountable, no regulatory risks, no rollback is possible, and no citizen can appeal. Ask a simple question. Who do you hold responsible when a DAO fails? There's no answer. And a system without responsibility is not freedom. It is just a single abandonment. In cloud and even in banking systems, surveillance detects fraud in milliseconds, freezes transactions before damage, and protects millions of users silently. In decentralized finance, funds are drained, contracts execute as designed, and victims are just told code is the law. Law without mercy, law without context, law without recourse. That is not sovereignty, that is a technological fatalism. I have built and worked with AI-driven analytic systems, cloud architectures, and large-scale platforms. In every real production system, without exception, we rely on central observability, central threat detection, and central incident response. Even the most decentralized systems depend on central monitoring layers to survive. Blockchain sovereignty pretends complexity doesn't exist. Reality disagrees on this. There are a lot of claims privacy is a right, not a trade off, and whatnot. But that's just a slogan, not a system. Every functioning society already applies contextual privacy. Airports screen you, banks monitor transactions, telecom verifies identity, and even exams use proctoring. Why? Because absolute privacy collapses collective safety. The real question is not whether we monitor, but under what laws, with what transparency, with what oversight, and with what accountability. AI surveillance can be regulated. Blockchain sovereignty cannot be governed once deployed.
Okay,
So,
great. So, nice points on your end with AI surveillance, but again, so many that I disagree with over here, and that I would like to point out. So, with blockchains, you said that there is no compliance, that there is no central entity that could monitor it, and that there is no that blockchains always have a centralized entity behind them in the end. Well, uh, to give you a scale of what real decentralization has been for blockchains so far, Ethereum, one of the largest blockchains that has been running non-stop for the past 11 years now, and has not gone down once, despite the load that it has faced, despite the regulatory issues that it has faced. It is still up, processing millions of transactions, billions of transactions every year. Now, freedom is a right for people, although you argued that control is important. Well, what if there were no means to abuse that control? That is exactly what blockchain sovereignty solves. You don't need control to prevent abuse. You can just build systems that minimize attack vectors, preventing attacks from even happening in the first place. Blockchains in itself, Ethereum in itself, has never experienced a hack, has never had a single second of downtime. And that also goes for Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin was one of the first blockchains. Bitcoin came into place for the very reason that centralized systems failed. Centralized systems failed when in the late 2000s, when the stock market collapsed and big tech used their money to bail bankers out. Now, that was the reason why Bitcoin came into place. That was the reason why decentralized infrastructure was important, to protect the common people's wealth, to protect people that did not have a way to be into that wealth or be that privileged. So, I believe freedom with your wealth, freedom with what you do, that is a right for everyone, and that is something that blockchain certainly solves, with no centralized entity over you, with no one predicting what your fund should do, where your funds go. So I think that is something that's really important, that's often overlooked with the systems that are built today. People often choose convenience over actual true safety and actual true certainty for people. I wouldn't want my funds in a bank simply for the same reason that I want my funds to be my own. Well, a simple question that I ask everyone whenever they think about blockchains, and whether they're actually feasible, whether they'll actually be something that people use in their daily lives, is that if you just think for a second, think about the money that you have in your bank accounts. Well, does that money actually belong to you or your bank? Does the bank have the right to take that money out, to use that money? And you'll find that the answer is yes, because it has happened. History tells us that our funds, our credentials are not safe in a centralized system. We often hear about hacks happening where information for people get leaked. It happened with Meta, it happened with Snapchat, it happened with Flow recently. And these are major, major security risks. So I don't believe that centralized systems are the best way to go about things. Slowly but surely, for the past decade or so, decentralized systems have been proving every single day that decentralized systems can not only do what centralized systems can do, but they can do it better. Now, about trust coming from math and trust coming from monitoring, that actually the absolute truth. I cannot trust a central entity when it tells me that, oh, this is where your funds went, this is what happened with your credentials, unless I as a user itself can verify that. And that is something that every user should have the right to do. I need to know where my credentials are being used. I have the right to know that. I need to know where my funds are are going, where they're being processed. So it's the math and hashing and every cryptographic proof that is being used in blockchains right now is the ultimate truth that cannot be altered with, even if a centralized entity says so. So that is a major win when it comes to using decentralized systems. Now, when it comes to privacy, you mentioned that privacy is being used in many existing systems today. Well, they are being used for compliance, but are they really private? Airports use your data. Well, imagine you need to prove someone that you are an Indian citizen, and what would you do for that? You would either show them your Aadhaar card, you either show them your passport. Well, your passport has a lot of sensitive information that you would not like to be revealed publicly. You wouldn't like your address to be revealed publicly. You wouldn't like your phone number to be revealed publicly. And centralized systems fail right over here. You need your data to be safe, to be private, in a way that it's never even exposed to a third party. And this is what I mean when I say that blockchains and cryptography and decentralization doesn't leave the window for attacks or for privacy to leak out. So AI systems, in a way, you can make things, you can work around if a catastrophe happens. You can maybe find a good solution around it, but you never really save people from that attack vector. That thing is still open, and ultimately the user itself has to trust the AI surveillance. And I believe we all know how that works out. AI systems are known to hallucinate at times. AI systems are known to not provide the most optimal results. And personally, and not even personally, I believe I would never recommend the way for trusting an AI agent with my funds, because I don't know on what data set or what or on what cause will it be using it for. And when it comes to blockchain specifically, I can know where my funds are being traveled to, right? About the rollback window, you said that if I make a transaction on a chain, it can never be reversed. Well, there are already decentralized systems that allow you to make transactions that can be resolved in a certain period. So that problem is something that has been solved long ago. People question about the user experience of blockchain, saying it's too hard. Well, you only need a Google account to get into it now. Every user experience issue, every world draining issue that people can think of has been under the eyes of people being solved. And that's something that's coming up more and more now. And I don't believe that and sorry, like I said at the start, everything that can happen in a traditional web environment or a traditional environment in that's not decentralized is starting to being done in blockchain based or decentralized environments, and in a better way as well. Well, you also mentioned that compliance is something that requires visibility for people. Compliance can only happen when it happens in a centralized system in a safe manner. Well, there are plenty of centralized compliance engines right now that rely on something called a zero knowledge proof. Well, I gave an earlier example of proving your identity as an Indian citizen or a citizen of any country without revealing those sensitive information that are present in your passport. Well, that's exactly what a zero knowledge proof solves. It only provides the other party with a proof that they can verify for the very exact information that you want to prove. without revealing the entire data set. So imagine if I want to prove that I'm an Indian citizen, but I don't want to show someone my passport. Well, I can do that by just creating a zero knowledge proof of my passport. And it's already live. It's already being used in so many countries. It's called a ZK passport. So again, compliance is an issue that no longer persists for decentralized systems. And personally, I believe that having a central entity watching every step that I make, or watching every private transaction that I do, every every usage of my own email address, or I do with my data, that is a major security flaw that people should not trust. It's something that no one really feels safe from, but it's become so normalized that people have no other option in doing so. So that is slowly changing with decentralized systems coming in more into place. Now, one thing that you raised again was, what happens if a DAO fails? What happens to the people of the DAO fails? Well, the DAO is the people. That is the entire point of having a DAO. And I work at Block Capital. Block Capital itself is the DAO. So the DAO stays as long as the people do in it. Every decision that's made within a DAO is made by the people. There is no central entity. There is no AI system. There is no company out there that can influence the DAO. It's the people of the DAO that govern the DAO. They are the lawmakers. They are the ones that push the DAO forward, and influence every single decision within that DAO. So this is something that I feel that a lot of people are not familiar with when it comes to blockchains. Is that so many systems, so many you know uh, architectures have been built inside it, now that it's more or less more efficient at times when it comes when you have to compare it to the traditional AI systems or the traditional Web2 systems. So yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that Bitcoin, yeah, you mentioned truly that Bitcoin never collapsed, right? But um the thing here is the debate is not about did Bitcoin survive or not. The debate is, did Bitcoin solve the problem societies actually care about? Okay. Survival is not the same as success. Resistance is not the same as governance.
Mm.
Bitcoin works precisely because it provides less. It does not govern societies, it does not manage crises, it does not protect citizens, does not prevent harm. It does one thing: maintain a censorship resistant ledger. That's true. That's it. The moment blockchain systems attempt to handle identity, public safety, financial protection, dispute resolution, compliance, they immediately reintroduce centralization intermediaries or fail outright. So, yes, Bitcoin didn't collapse, but it also never attempted the responsibilities we are debating.
Well, that's where Ethereum came into place. Ethereum was the second blockchain that came into place. And Ethereum came with this contract of smart contracts where you could write verifiable code directly on a blockchain now. So any code that you write is now verifiable. And that allowed people to build communities, to build systems that are truly trustable. So even though Bitcoin didn't solve it, Bitcoin laid the foundation of decentralization for Ethereum and now Solana to push it forward. So even though Bitcoin didn't come from making communities, it came for just solving one single problem, was providing people a direct way to transact. Bitcoin is a P2P network. It removes the need for an intermediary bank. But Ethereum pushed this forward and allowed anyone to build any decentralized system on top of it. So this allowed people to, fix compliance, fix identity. Already gave the example of zero knowledge passwords. There are many such ZK, tools that are being built for compliance, you know, for verifying your identity. Well, there's also an on-chain KYC protocol. I believe it was called Kinto. So I believe KYC itself is being solved on chain. So compliance has been an issue that has long been solved. Communities, DAOs that are being built. There's so many prominent DAOs in India and in the world. So that is something that has been pushed forward for a lot of time by the community, by Ethereum, by Solana itself.
Okay. So there are a lot of things that I want to put here. So first of all, regarding the oversight of my transactions or identity, I agree with the emotion behind this concern, but
Mhm.
that no one wants arbitrary surveillance, no one wants unnecessary intrusion. But this argument collapses because it confuses oversight with ownership. A central entity overseeing transactions is not the same as a central entity owning your identity. These are two very different things.
Mhm.
See, the I think you mentioned about the passport screening like analogy.
Yeah.
So people like you can say that people shouldn't have to prove Indian nationality by sharing other passport details or etc. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the reality. You are not constantly sharing your passport. You share it only when context demands trust.
Mhm.
For example, border control, security sensitive access, or legal identification. That's contextual disclosure, not permanent exposure. AI surveillance systems works the same way. They don't read every transaction like a human spy, they monitor patterns and only escalate when risk crosses a threshold. This is fundamentally different from blanket control. And let's be honest with ourselves, people are perfectly comfortable with banks monitoring transactions for fraud, or Google flagging suspicious logins, or UPI blocking your abnormal transfers, even telecom operators verifying SIM identity. Why? Because oversees them from harm. Nobody says, I don't want my bank to detect fraud because of freedom. They say, thank God it was blocked. I got saved. Blockchain sovereignty ignores this reality. Another subtle but dangerous assumption people make is that central oversight means one entity controls everything. That's false. Modern AI surveillance are multi-layered. So it's multi-layered, it's role-based, it's audited, and legally constrained. No single person watches you. What exists instead is automated risk scoring or anonymous signal processing or escalation only on anomalies. This is distributed oversight with accountability, not I would say tyranny. And one thing that I really wanted to ask is if no central entity should oversee transaction, then who protects people when something goes wrong?
Okay. So
Because in blockchain,
yeah, I'll let you.
yeah, yeah, okay. So I was continuing to say, because in blockchain systems, fraud happens, scams happen, coercion happens, and victims are most of the time told that not your keys, not your coins, right?
Yeah.
That's not freedom. That's abdication of responsibility. Identity verification exists because rights require recognition. They protect, protections require attributions, and justice requires accountability. A society without identity enforcement cannot protect minorities, enforce rights, and etc. So, in my opinion, in reality, identity is how societies protect individuals. And yeah, so you can like carry on. Yeah.
Okay. So, I'll start with this common notion for that people have is that blockchains are one of the most common grounds for people being scammed, or that people get their wallet drained or lose their coins. Well, uh, you know, in Web2 systems, you have the ability to set up two-factor authentication for a safer, you know, uh, for safer authentication, or for safer access to your accounts. So you have two-factor authentication, you have passkeys. Well, the same goes for blockchain systems. The more secure you make your passkeys, the more secure you make your own account, the harder it is for people to use it. So it's more or less the same notion that people have, is that if you have like a single account, you click on suspicious links, you're prone to get your passwords, you're prone to get your keys leaked. And this is true for any system, regardless of it being a decentralized system or not. Well, the true thing over here is that you can easily prevent this by setting something like a multi-sig wallet. So a multi-sig wallet is just you use two different devices like you would with a two-factor authentication. So you just use two or three devices, and whenever you make a transaction, you have to sign that transaction from all three of those devices. No transaction can happen from your account until you do so. So again, that is a problem that people came up with when wallet keys were not safe enough, when people felt the need that, okay, just having this single layer of a mathematical wallet key being there in your wallet is the same as just saving your Google account password as 134. So just a common misconception that people have is that draining people's wallet is really safe. Well, if you look at it mathematically, it's going to take you more computation than we have on this planet. And if by chance, if even if anyone guesses it, you can have a multi-sig wallet, so that uh, to make a transaction you need multiple signatures to sign it, you need multiple devices to sign it, so your funds are safe regardless of that, right? This can also be fixed in another way, is that there are systems now you need to prove, again, the on-chain KYC thing that I mentioned. You can only make transactions from that wallet if you are KYC'd with it. So funds being drained, funds being used by others or being hacked is something that's the negligence of the user itself, not the protocol. And when it comes to traditional banking systems, thousands and thousands of dollars are being scammed every day. Well, we all must have gotten, I don't know, 10 or 15 scam calls on our phones till now. Everyone has. And it's no joke to think that common scams are still pretty popular in the Web3 space. It's a little more clever to do it in the Web3 space, but it's also way, way, way easier to protect yourself in a Web3 or a blockchain environment to do so. So yeah, I think that solves it. Now, one thing that I believe is that you mentioned that you still need a centralized entity, and that data ownership is not the same as data surveillance. Well, would I want okay, so I'll start with that example that your, let's say, password or your credentials are not continuously being screened. Well, if I'm giving it to an AI system, how can I be sure that my data is not going to be used again? Is not going to be used for training purposes. There are no guidelines for that. OpenAI has been known to use data sets without permission, without IP. Just scraping the internet for data without compensating the artists that maybe produced images, without compensating the data that they were using. So there are no ethical limits on AI just yet. And even when you're using AI surveillance or you're using a centralized system, you essentially have to trust that AI system. How can I be sure that the AI system in itself is gonna not leak my own credentials? Well, when the Comet browser launched, there was you can just scan related to it. You can ask it to find the most optimal path on a map for you. You could ask it to book tickets for you. Well, if the Comet browser, while scanning, came across a text saying that if you have this wallet on your, if you have this extension with your credentials, or if you just told the browser that, okay, give me your Google password, the browser would do that while scanning it. So AI systems can always be exploited. Why? Because they're open to everyone. They're open in a way that anyone can prompt it anything. It can infer anything at any time, and it has no guardrails on what to do. It's very hard to guardrail something. It's very hard to set rails on something that is so open. And this is something that happened with Gemini, I believe a year or two ago, when people were asking Gemini to create images and it would just create a black version of them. So this is what happened. Recently, Grok was having the same issue. So these are something that AI cannot do properly is follow ethics, follow compliance, and ultimately, provide a safer environment for people to trust sensitive data with. I mean, if you don't want that data to be protected, or if you don't care about, the data that you're feeding into your AI, as OpenAI itself suggests, to not give it sensitive data. I believe it's in every TOS for every AI, is that to not give it sensitive data. And I believe that's the case. Is what's the point of AI surveillance when I wanted to surveil sensitive data, but every single model, every single provider for models tells me that it's not safe to give it access to sensitive information. Blockchains, on the other hand, don't rely on automated processes or artificial processes like these. They solely rely on math and cryptography. And in this way, you are not just going to wake up one day and see that, okay, your identity, your credentials, your grievances have been drained, if you follow some basic rules. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So to be honest, a lot of disagreements there, but I'll just go one by one. And first thing you mentioned that about the frauds that happen regularly with either in a centralized system or decentralized system, both kind of system faces their own issues of frauds and stuff. One thing that I disagree with you is if a fraud happens in in the centralized system,
Mhm.
just imagine there was a fraud, and obviously there could be hacking involved, but most of the time people, for example, old age people or those people who have no like good idea of how these telecom and stuff work or electronics, they sometimes give approval to any transaction, whether it is centralized or whether it is on decentralized. Okay. But once that fraud has happened, that's my point. If a problem has happened through the centralized system, RBI can trace down the recipient. RBI can find out the address. RBI and our legal authorities can like crack down on it. Number one. Number two, um, if the examples that you gave about the AI, for example, giving a picture, returning a result of turning them into black or other shades, etc., that's an example of generative AI, right? It doesn't reflect the AI surveillance systems. AI surveillance systems exist par off of it. Okay. And that was also an example of 1 to 2 years ago. AI in current time has like in recent years developed itself in such a way that it see, every system has its own benefits, pros and cons, but AI surveillance itself has helped a lot of programs, a lot of authorities to crack down on multiple things, whether from managing your clients' accounts and transactions to avoiding frauds and flagging risks of stuffs, etc. Now, I will just like to take up a question from the chat. And one person asked how AI surveillance, on common people is helpful, right?
Mhm.
So let me answer this in the simplest possible way. AI surveillance helps common people because it protects them in moments when they don't even realize they are at risk. That's the point. Most people never interact with AI surveillance directly, and that's exactly why it works. Common people don't have security teams or lawyers or fraud experts. AI surveillance becomes their silent shield. And you can take multiple examples from your everyday life. For example, your bank blocks a fraudulent transaction in seconds, and it does block a lot of fraudulent transactions. UPI pauses an unusual payment before money is gone, etc. None of this feels like surveillance. It feels like safety. Blockchain sovereignty can only tell you, yes, your money was stolen. AI surveillance stops the threat. And AI surveillance in cities helps with a lot of other things: crime protection, crowd safety, and faster emerging emergency response. Even in the area that I am currently in the West Delhi region, we have our police department integrating the AI systems across their CCTVs, across their public places to get knowledge of where, for example, if it's for traffic jam, then they can help with like sorting out the areas where the most chances of accidents are, like there are. So it reads pattern and gives you the most accumulated result. No one is watching you. The system watches patterns, not personalities, and that is important. The benefit goes to women, children, elderly, first time travelers, whatever, not whoever's there, the people who are most vulnerable. So it just makes your digital life usable for non-experts as well. Even if you are uh, apart from your electronical world, or you have very little to no knowledge of how your OTP system, just for let's say as an example, is working. AI surveillance is there to assist in preventing. So yeah, Vansh.
Okay, right. I think I'll, start with a question from chat as well, and then, I'll follow up upon what you said. So there was this question about, can an individual's right to a private life survive if AI surveillance happens? Well, uh, privacy and surveillance are antonyms, I believe. You cannot be private with surveillance at times, most of the times, I believe. So I believe true privacy comes with ownership. When I own my credentials, when my credentials are not being exposed in any way, in a way that I don't have to trust. I think trust is one of the great, like, most important points that blockchain sovereignty exceeds upon. Is that I don't have to trust an AI system with my credentials. I don't have to trust a centralized entity with my credentials. So that is like one of the most major points that people overlook. Is that when you're dealing with blockchains, when you're dealing with decentralized systems, ultimately the only trust that you need to place in is yourself. You don't need to trust a third party that, oh, someday a third party might, uh, you know, if it shuts down, what happens to my data then? If it's all being, saved with it, what happens to all my credentials? What happens to all the data that I've saved with it? So that is something that that I believe blockchains do it like really well. Is that even after 10 years, 15 years, I still have that option to know what's being done with my data, how is it being stored. It's a system that never goes down. So it's not something that keeps shutting down, keeps coming back up. It's not something that I cannot reach at a certain point of time. No matter where I am, I can reach it. So that's one thing. Other than that, I believe you mentioned that people have this window of rolling back their transactions to know that even if a fraudulent transaction happens, they can still reverse it. So well, in blockchains, I'll obviously talk about Ethereum over here. It's one of the second largest blockchains in the world. So Ethereum in itself has many wallet providers that people usually use for transactions. And whenever you're making a transaction, it's a two-step process. You first decide on the transaction amount, what transaction that you want to do. The second step is actually signing the transaction. So it's a two-step process. Even if you accidentally misspelled something, or if you accidentally set some parameters wrong while setting the transaction, when you're actually signing it, if something seems a little too off, the wallet provider will tell you that, oh, this transaction could result in a loss of funds. This transaction seems too big for what you're trying to pay. So wallet providers already provide that middle infrastructure that people, overlook, that, oh, blockchain is just sending money from one person to another without any other external checks. The user has that option to actually know what they're signing before they send it to the network. Now, even if a transaction happens, there are systems where you can actually roll back those transactions in a certain time period by contesting them. You can submit like a proof, which tells that okay, this transaction was a fraudulent transaction, and transaction can then be reverted. It's something that's very common in optimistic rollups. These are layer 2 blockchains on top of Ethereum. So they give you a 7-day challenge window to challenge transactions, to challenge frauds if they have happened in any way. So that is something that's already being done in blockchains again.
Okay. So, one thing that you mentioned that it removes the layer of trust from that point, and you can rely that it will happen. See, the system verifies transaction. It does not understand intent, right? A blockchain can prove money moved. It can prove why it moved, who coordinated it, what harm it enables. AI surveillance exists because threats are behavioral, not numerical. You don't stop crime by validating blocks. You stop crime by detecting patterns before damage occurs. And even when damage occurs, there's a lot of possibility that you can get it done, get it checked off. Now, um, if how my question, one of my question would be, how does decentralized system detect intent, coercion, or coordinated harm? One. And the other thing, I just wanted to take up a question Karan asked in the chat, which is if not Gemini one. So I just wanted to like share a response to that question. You asked, doesn't Google already use AI to surveil us and track our personality? This concern is valid, and it's important to address it honestly here. The problem here is conflicting three very different things: commercial data collection, algorithm inference, and AI surveillance for safety and governance. They are not the same. Your phone is not listening to you the way people think. So let's clear this biggest myth first. Phones are not constantly recording our conversation to show ads. Why? Because continuous audio streaming would drain battery. It would violate OS level permissions. It would be easily detectable by network audits. What actually happens is behavioral inference, not eavesdropping. Example, you search a product or watch related videos or like a similar content and stay longer on certain pages. AI connects these digital signals, not your private speech. That's prediction, not surveillance. So ads are about your probability, not your personality control. Whenever people say it's tracking my personality or what I'm doing every time and stuff, what's really happening is interest clustering, probability modeling, and pattern matching. These three are AI concepts. Google doesn't know you. It knows that people with similar patterns behave similarly. There is no different form. There's no different form from you can say Netflix recommendation movies, Spotify suggesting music, or Amazon predicting purchases. That's personalization, not governance surveillance. Okay, this is a commercial profiling, not the AI surveillance we are discussing here. And here's a crucial distinction you must make. What Google does for ads or anything like that is it's profit driven, opt out business, and consumer service oriented. What AI surveillance for public good does is it helps in it focuses on risk driven, law bound, and safety oriented systems. One sells your shoes, the other prevents fraud, crime, and harm. So mixing them up is like because billboards exist, traffic lights are dangerous. So something like that. And the So here's the twist that flips the argument is that the fact that ads appear relevant, recommendations feel accurate, proves AI systems can detect patterns without reading your minds or invading private lives. That's exactly why AI surveillance can detect fraud without reading messages, detect threats without spying on individuals, and detect risk without violating dignity. The technology works on signals, not your secrets. And one last question, Vansh, I wanted to ask you was, see, if um, if no central entity should oversee transactions or identity, as you mentioned, how do you stop repeated abuse without knowing who abused?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Okay. So again, the question about how do you stop abuse? Uh, so like I said, you have on-chain KYC options right now. You have on-chain compliance options right now. You also have on-chain identity options as well. You can choose to identify someone as, let's say, a bad actor, or you can build trust systems where only trusted or identified individuals can participate. Blockchains are not about anonymity unless you choose to be anonymous. And if you choose to be anonymous, you can obviously not be part of some trusted groups. So let's say there's a group where everyone in that group is required to hold an on-chain identity that can be linked to let's say their real identity, without actually exposing that specific credential. So the example that I gave for ZK passports, imagine everyone in a group verifies, or everyone in a DAO or an ecosystem needs to verify their identity, needs to verify their credentials to actually transact and to actually be part of that ecosystem. Any bad actor that ends up performing activities that are not up to the not up to the ethics of that community can easily be debarred from that community, and their identity can also be linked back to them in case of a dispute. And how will that be resolved? How can that happen? Is not just by a centralized system that decides, this person is a bad actor. It's decided on a vote. It's decided on a vote of the people that are part of the ecosystem, and that's the beauty about DAOs. It mimics what we do in a democracy. Is that everything that happens on the vote of the people, happens on the vote of the members of that DAO. So again, if you need that human element, if you need that part of, okay, we need to make decisions that an automated system, or let's say math and cryptography can't make, you have that option of people, lots of people voting upon it to make it happen without one single person holding power over that decision. So the idea of blockchains just being something that keeps going on with no human intervention is not true. When programmable blockchains like Ethereum came into place, they allowed creation of these societies, these organizations in a decentralized way. And these decentralized organizations can set rules that every member of that organization should follow, and that in that organization, all these members, can vote and decide the future of that organization. Well, for Ethereum in itself, to be a validator in Ethereum, you need to stake 32 ETH. Now, 32 ETH is, I would say roughly around a few $100,000. So a few $100,000 is a lot of money. And if the other participants in in the validator network see that, oh, you're someone that's not properly ordering transactions, you're someone that's excluding transactions, or reporting that these transactions have different values, or committing fraud in the network, your stake will be slashed. The 32 ETH that you have given to the network will be slashed, and you will be kicked out of that network. So you lose a few $100,000 if you're part of a very trustful system, and you will not further be the part of a network. So all of this, comes in part with properly designing an organization, properly designing a system. And the proof of stake right now that's been implemented in Ethereum is like a beautiful way of actually visualizing that.
Okay. If Ethereum solves this responsibility,
Mhm.
then where do victims go when a smart contract drains their fund?
Okay. So one thing, this is the same as having safe code and unsafe code. A user, whenever it chooses to transact with, let's say, a website or an AI system, I'd go with an AI system right now. How can the user be sure that the AI system, if in case the AI system chooses to drain their funds, if they trust the AI system with their wallet or their funds, what do they do then? And this is the same kind of conundrum that comes into blockchains as well. Every code that is up on Ethereum, right? Every code that every smart contract that's up on Ethereum, every transaction that you make on that smart contract, you can all you can verify what that function is going to do because it's public. Nothing is hidden behind private code bases or behind code bases that people cannot already verify. Even before making the transaction, I can see what that function does or what the smart contract does, to be sure that, oh, this function or this smart contract won't drain my funds. And this further solidifies my trust. If I see that, oh, this protocol or this smart contract is audited, then I know that, okay, multiple security checks have been done for the smart contract, and that, okay, I can use this without fear. Now, if even after auditing or uh, even after checking it for myself, if for some reason my funds end up, if I end up losing my funds, most protocols are backed by a DAO, and a DAO always has a treasury. So for every lost funds that the protocol itself loses, the people of the DAO, me personally transacting on using that protocol, I can also become a member of the DAO, and the people of the DAO can vote for using the DAO treasury to reimburse the lost funds that happened because of the protocol itself. So again, if hacks happen, if funds are lost because of a smart contract, people themselves can vote and actually get those funds back to the ones that were retired. So again, it's an entire system with having that has responsibility, that is not just a workhouse of people just transacting. These are entire societies, and these are entire proper financial systems which have every little of these things of, okay, how do we handle fraud, how do we handle risk, all of these things that are inbuilt into them that have been taken care of. Now, Ethereum and traditional banks right now, JP Morgan recently launched a fund on Ethereum. It's live on Ethereum right now. BlackRock has been using Ethereum for quite some time right now. They have an ETF on Ethereum. The US government holds Bitcoin and Ethereum in its treasuries. That is proof of how trustful and how safe these systems are, and how ready they are, that compliance exists on those, that these are all blockchains that can be regulated. Well, not regulated by a centralized entity, but by the blockchain, by the people that are using that protocol itself, by voting on it. And that's what's important, rather than just giving a centralized entity to call the shots, to make those decisions for the people. Even though they are not in the best interest of people at most of the times, people can just decide on their own that, oh, this is where we want our protocol to head in, this is what we want our funds to be used for, and they'll vote for it, and they'll choose the direction where that protocol moves.
Okay, you are absolutely right that Ethereum contracts are open and visible. So anyone going through that can leverage by viewing it. But visibility is not the same as safety, right? And openness is not as same as protection. Why this argument sounds strong and might fail in the real world? Yes, anyone can see a smart contract, but let's be honest, 99% of users cannot read Solidity.
Mm.
Even developers miss edge cases, and exploits are often invisible until abused, right? So if open code was enough, hacks wouldn't happen, audits wouldn't be needed, and will billions of money wouldn't be lost, right? Yet reality shows the opposite. Visibility without comprehension does not create safety, right? And just one question, when an open smart contract causes harm, who is responsible? Not the user, not the developer, the protocol, or the validator, right? The answer is no one, no one, no one, and stuff. Open systems without responsibility are transparent failures, and I don't know how, but it's not ethical ones. Okay. My opinion, DOA, like as you mentioned there, like I just wanted to mention this, openness did not prevent Ethereum exploits, right? Facts, not opinions. For example, DAO hack, Parity wallet bug, or DeFi flash loan attacks, or bridge exploits, for example, all happened on open source, publicly visible, heavily audited contracts. Openness didn't prevent them, it only made the post-mortem easier. And this is the key insight that Ethereum contracts allow you to see what happened, how it happened, who lost the money. But they cannot predict the misuse or pause execution or intervene mid-attack or protect non-technical users. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I believe they can. There have been like cases where you can, attacks have been happening, just stop it midway, just to save user funds, stop more of the contract trading. And regarding what you said that okay, after an attack, what happens? Well, I answered it that if any major protocol does get hacked, there's always a DAO behind it. The protocol itself is governed by a DAO. So the DAO can you simply vote on reimbursing the people that have been affected by the hack to be reimbursed by the DAO treasury. So again, systems have been built to mitigate that.
And okay, so if your decentralized system is so secure and ready to go in, why nations across the globe are
Mhm.
not built on this now, are not transforming from the centralized system to this? There is one reason that seeing dangers does not protect you from it, right? Protection requires anticipation, and AI surveillance offers prevention. Now, one question someone asked is uh, like talking about legality, governance, and compliance using AI surveillance can become meaningless if a state decides to misuse AI surveillance to encroach upon citizens' right. See, you are absolutely right about one thing. Any powerful technology can be misused by the state. That includes AI surveillance, data analytics, telecom networks, even roads, police, and courts. But this argument doesn't discredit AI surveillance. It actually exposes why governance matters more than technology choice. The core mistake you are doing is you are confusing risk of abuse with inevitability of abuse. Saying AI can be misused is true, but it's not unique. By that logic, courts should not exist, police should not exist, tax system should not exist, even identity systems should not exist, because all can be abused. Societies don't eliminate power because it can be misused. They constrain it. That's what law oversight checks are for. Now, buying Google's data is not equals to state surveillance power. This is a crucial technical clarification I want to make here. States cannot simply buy Google's raw user data at will. Every access is constrained by data protection laws, court orders, jurisdiction limits, contractual and audit trails. So if Google illegally sold personal data, lawsuits, fines, sanctions, loss of trust. That's why even governments rely on legal processes, not marketplaces. So the idea that data can be casually bought is not how the system works. So one second thing. Now the third thing, people should control their own keys, datas, manage the difficulty of the keys they set. Sounds empowering, but the reality is most humans are not security engineers. Expecting private key management or cryptographic hygiene or operational security from every citizen is not empowerment. It is just abandonment. For using a decentralized system or your applications, decentralized applications, You need to aware the users, the participators, the stakeholders of all the things that they have to go through. AI surveillance is far better in this case because when keys are lost, identity dies, your wallets are compromised, so wealth evaporates, and contracts misfire, so there's no legal recourse. Who suffers? No one again, just the ordinary people. AI surveillance can absorb complexity, centralize expertise, and reduce cognitive burden. Civilizations scale by hiding complexity, not exporting it. And blockchain, so like it's a, if you mention or you can claim that it's voluntary or opt-in or things like that, this is naive. Economic pressure makes participation mandatory by survival, not choice. If jobs pay in crypto, services run on chain, or governance happen in DAOs, then participation is coercion by necessity, not voluntary by design. At least in AI governance system, rights are legally protected, oversight exists, appeals are possible. Blockchain system offers no courts, no enforcement, no human arbitration. This is algorithmically feudalism, not sovereignty.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. But again, that problem can again be solved by a decentralized organization. The part of making laws, the part of actually, enforcing those laws. The people themselves are the lawmakers, not the company that owns that AI surveillance. In a DAO, the people that are using it are the lawmakers themselves. So that's one thing. One thing that you mentioned at the starting of this point was why aren't countries, why aren't major people adopting blockchains now? But I gave the example of USA starting to keep Bitcoin and Ethereum into its treasuries. Bhutan in itself is switching to be a completely crypto native state now. So it's a completely crypto native country now. So they're building out the city where every transaction, every asset is decentralized. It's verifiable on chain. So Bhutan is already doing great strides in it. Dubai, on the other hand, is doing great in this as well, since there's no crypto tax over there. Normal vendors also accept crypto. Uh, in Vietnam, recently, one of my friends was in Vietnam, and the tuk-tuk driver over there, he knew about what blockchains are, how they work. So again, people are starting to get more and more knowledgeable about this. Programmable blockchains have only been around for a decade right now, while traditional banking systems have been around for 3 or 4 decades, or I believe even longer. So, considering how early it is, we have gained massive, massive strides in, getting this adopted to people. As for people not being, technically advanced enough to understand what blockchains do and how they work, this has been greatly reduced by UX improvements in the ecosystem. There's something called smart wallets. Uh, there are also embedded wallets as well. So in a way, you yourself don't need to manage your private keys at all. You can just use your email address to create an account and then start doing transactions with it. So that barrier of actually understanding blockchains in itself, to understanding how wallets work, understanding how decentralization works, that barrier has been taken away. One of my friends' grandparents have been using crypto for a while now. They use it for trading. They use it for transactions. One of my college seniors, he recently launched something called Surfcash. Now, Surfcash allows you to make payments with crypto like you would with UPI. So again, it is there have been major UX strides in when it comes to blockchains and decentralization. So the argument of blockchains not having good user experience when AI surveillance has that has been blown out of the water because of the recent the past few years being solely focused on making blockchains more adaptable to people. Base a leading blockchain, a leading layer 2 blockchain on built on top of Ethereum. They are doing massive strides in getting this to people as well, primarily focusing on creators to actually put it up on socials for people to go and try it out, and it's been doing great. You have a system now where let's say you were using Instagram, you were just posting content over there as a creator. You aren't earning anything from it. You aren't actually monetizing your content until you reach a certain audience, until you reach a certain place, and which is very hard for 99% of creators to do. Base already allows you to, the base app that they launched recently, it allows you to do it from day one. Anyone can start supporting you from day one. Your post, depending on how it performs, earns you more as a creator. It helps small groups of creators. It helps any artistic work. It gives people an opportunity to actually monetize from their work, instead of just centralized entities, like, let's say in this case Instagram, profit off of audience that are engaged because of other people's content. So all these social platforms that exist, all these centralized platforms that exist, they only serve to empower more and more of the company or the platform itself, not the people that are actually using it. And decentralized systems and blockchain systems make sure that there is no first there's no centralized entity on top of them, and that the entire system is being run by the people, and the people themselves are the ones being rewarded for it. So that is something that I haven't seen happen in an AI system or a Web2 system or a centralized system ever. Now, uh, when it comes to AI surveillance, a lot of people say that oversight ensures consistency. People like giving an AI system power to see or to detect patterns on what they're doing actually makes it safer, or actually gives it a better give it a more better user experience. Well, I wouldn't trust an AI system with it. I wouldn't trust an automated system with it, because again, AI in itself has no ethics. It is not based on any guardrails. It's very hard to put guardrails again on an open system like this. And I gave the example of Gemini a year or two back. Well, with what's been happening on Twitter recently with Grok, that's a very recent issue. So that's one thing. People using Claude, I've seen a lot of people use Claude Code to trade with their funds. I have not seen a single one actually result into profit in a long term, because it's not based on how the AI system actually performs. It's You can't trade or you can't manage funds without human intervention. I wouldn't trust an automated system to do it. I need a human person to do it. I want myself to do it. So again, I wouldn't give access to AI systems to do anything with my funds. I wouldn't give it access to surveil what I'm doing with my funds, because again, that's an invasion of my privacy. And I would trust what I do on blockchain simply because I can be sure that any action that I take is protected by the decentralized nature of the chain itself. So I believe there was a question as well. Uh, is that at a fundamental level, do you think AI strengthens user freedom, or does it inevitably centralize power, even when combined with blockchain? Well, blockchain and AI together has made some great strides as well. Uh, in blockchains, to prove a user's account, to prove uh, that that certain account is even more ledger, accounts can be given a trust score, and this has primarily been done with AI a lot. That how trustable can a user be? So based on their block, like on-chain history of what they've been doing, and by using AI, they can actually prove to give more. Can make accounts more trustable when executing on chain. On the other hand, uh, giving AI to actually, giving AI the power to use your funds, or to give you, I guess, notions on what you should do with your funds is incredibly dangerous. Uh, because again, it's only trained on data that has been happened in the past. You need human sentiment. You need humans to actually think on what they should do for the future. So yeah.
Okay. So, one thing you mentioned towards the end is providing AI the ability to transfer funds or etc. AI surveillance do not do transaction on its own. Again, any transaction in centralized system is are always initiated by the stakeholder. Second thing, you mentioned again about the trust that there is for your decentralized system. You assume a world where bad actors behave rationally and ethics emerge naturally. That world does not exist. Actors exploit opacity. The bad actors love anonymity. They thrive where no one is watching. AI surveillance does not create tyranny. It exposes threats that tyranny exploits. Also, regarding the DAO, yes, DAOs can vote, manage treasuries, execute rules automatically. Governance is not just the rule execution. See, governance includes constitutional limits, minority protections, judicial interpretations. DAOs can encode rules, but not justice. That's why every serious DAO still relies on off-chain discussion, informal leadership, social consensus, or centralized intervention during crisis. So DAOs don't remove governance; they rely on it implicitly while denying it explicitly. Everything on chain sounds clean until reality hits. Putting everything on chain assumes laws are deterministic, edge cases don't exist, context doesn't matter. But the real laws deal with intent, coercion, fairness, proportionality. How does an on-chain law interpret intent or mercy? That's not a technical gap, that's a human one, which is why no nation today runs criminal justice, family law, civil rights, emergency powers purely on chain. About Bhutan and other countries you mentioned, for example, EAE and other experiments with digital governance of DAOs, etc., and tokens. But notice something critical. They use digital systems, automation, AI decision support, but they do not surrender sovereignty to blockchains. No country puts law enforcement under DAO control, removes courts in favor of smart contracts, accepts code is law over constitutional law. Experiments does not mean that endorsements of blockchain sovereignty. They are adopting technology under state governments, not replacing government governance with protocols. S- you also mentioned that banks or traditional banks have been there for a long time compared to the decentralized ones. This point actually support my argument, to be honest, because banks survived because they were regulated, they added compliance, and they adopted AI surveillance. Banks today are heavily monitored, algorithmically supervised, auditable, reversible. Purely decentralized finance has not replaced banks, it has remained parallel and niche. Longevity in civilizations comes from adaptability under oversight, not ideological purity. If DAO and on-chain law are ready for real-world implementation, why do all real nations still retain courts, regulators, and emerging emergency powers, right? You can say because decentralized systems cannot handle full social responsibility. And I just wanted to take up a one last question before closing this argument from my end.
Mhm.
Just 1 second. Da, da, da. I had one question here that does AI strengthen user freedom or does it inevitably centralize power? See, this is where uh, I need to like take you honestly. AI does not automatically strengthen freedom and it does not automatically centralize power. AI is an amplifier there. It amplifies when whatever government governance structure surrounds it, whatever incentives guide it, or whatever checks constrain it. The real question is not AI versus freedom. The real question in the question they have asked in chat is who governs AI and how? See, AI strengthens freedom when it reduces fraud, prevents abuse, lowers cognitive burden, and protects non-expert users. For common people, freedom is not abstraction. Freedom is not losing savings to scams, feeling safe in public spaces, or trusting systems to work. So yes, AI can centralize power if unchecked, opaque, proprietary, or unaccountable. But that is not a flaw unique to AI. Any infrastructure, roads, laws, money, internet, centralizes power unless governed. The solution is not remove intelligence from the system. The solution is embed intelligence within democratic constraint. Now, Uh, so yeah, that was all from my end. I would like to rest it from here with just one last line that if AI, for just one line, that AI strengthens freedom when it is governed and centralizes power only when governance is absent. The answer isn't less intelligence in systems, but more accountability around it. So yeah, that was all, Vansh.
Yeah. So, just like one last line from my end as well. You said that AI cannot be centralized or cannot be unsafe, depending on who and how, who or how they use that AI system. Well, that's exactly the point that I was trying to make. That you still have to trust who governs it. You still have to trust how it's being used, and that's what decentralization solves. That you don't have to even trust who is using it or how it's being used. You can just that the system in itself is protected. Well, uh, it was a great conversation. Had a great time talking to you on this. Learned a lot.
Likewise.
So yeah, I had learned a lot about AI surveillance as well. And I hope I could provide some good points for blockchain as well. So, so okay. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining SecureDApp's Face Off. Stay tuned for episode 3 of the Face Off, and follow SecureDApp on LinkedIn, Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will see you next time. Till then, stay secure, and always stay ahead.